On June 18, 1940, Charles de Gaulle made a speech broadcast by the BBC, urging the French people to resist Germany despite their overwhelming power. However, his message went largely unnoticed by the French population. France had suffered a devastating defeat at the hands of Hitler's forces. In turn, Marshal Pétain, the head of state in France, announced the country's intention to seek an armistice with Germany and accept a crushing defeat. De Gaulle, opposing Pétain's defeated and pro-Fascist stance, defied his leadership. Germany granted the armistice, which was signed in the same railway car at Compiegne where the armistice of World War I had been signed. Unwilling to accept such humiliation, the French general addressed his fellow Frenchmen, saying, quote, "Nothing is lost, because this war is a world war. France must be present at the victory. She will then regain her liberty and greatness. That is my goal, my only goal." Action, sacrifice, and hope. The armistice between France and Germany led to the establishment of a new state based in Vichy, replacing the Third Republic, and resulted in significant changes to France's core values. Northern France was occupied, the French military was disarmed, and Germany gained control over France's economic assets. Meanwhile, de Gaulle's initial attempts to rally support through the BBC had no response. Undeterred, he returned to the BBC studio and received a message from the Vichy government ordering him to return to France. De Gaulle disregarded the orders and was subsequently put on trial in absentia for high treason. Although the Vichy leaders did not intend to execute the death sentence, it intensified the conflict between de Gaulle and Vichy, establishing clear battle lines. Interestingly, the Vichy government inadvertently aided de Gaulle with the condemnations publicizing his call to arms, unintentionally spreading his message across France and its empire. Quote, "I ask all Frenchmen, wherever they may be, to unite with me in action, in sacrifice, and in hope. Our country is in danger of death. Let us fight to save it." De Gaulle formed an army of various groups and had around 7,000 men in England and Egypt by August. However, relations between the French and British worsened when the British attacked the French fleet off Oran to prevent it from falling into German hands. The French refusal to comply led to the damaging and sinking of French vessels, causing outrage among the Vichy French. Later, the British targeted and damaged the battleship Richelieu in Dakar. The French retaliated by severing diplomatic ties with Britain. These events fueled ideas of French discontent and a potential split from Vichy. Chain reaction. The general aimed to establish a physical base for his army and gain support from France's colonies. Dakar, the capital of Senegal, stood out as a potential base due to its strategic position and resources. And auspiciously, the governor of Chad, Félix Éboué, supported de Gaulle and triggered a chain reaction in French Equatorial Africa, with territories like Gabon and the Cameroons joining Free France. The Free French thus devised a plan to launch an assault on Dakar. This operation involved 2,700 soldiers from de Gaulle's army and utilized 2 Dutch liners, the Penland and Westernland, for troop transport. The British agreed to support the invasion by providing the Royal Navy and deploying 4,000 Royal Marines. The British named this operation Menace and contributed 4 mechanical transport ships to carry the Royal Marines. Major General Noel Irwin was appointed as the leader of the land force, while Admiral John Cunningham commanded the naval force, which included the aircraft carrier Ark Royal. The objective was to persuade the Vichy leadership in Dakar to join de Gaulle's cause. For this purpose, Luciole touring aircraft were deployed, carrying emissaries who would urge the Vichy officials to side with de Gaulle, hoping that Dakar could be captured without the need for combat if the mission succeeded. Tipping the balance. General de Gaulle aimed to persuade the French forces in Dakar to join the Allied cause, considering the political impact, gold reserves, and naval base superiority. The Allied task force was sent to Dakar with orders to negotiate for peaceful occupation, but prepared to use force if necessary. In parallel, Vichy France dispatched Force Y, consisting of 3 light cruisers, to deal with the secession of Equatorial Africa. But the British chose not to interfere with Vichy ships on French missions, allowing the cruisers to pass through Gibraltar without action. Later, the policy changed and sent the battlecruiser HMS Renown to prevent the French ships from reaching Dakar, but it was too late. HMAS Australia spotted the 3 French cruisers and followed them until losing sight of them. Australia intercepted the French cruiser Gaulle and convinced them to sail back to Casablanca, but the other 2 cruisers proceeded to Dakar. The presence of the additional cruisers at Dakar tipped the balance in favor of the Vichy governor, who was determined to defend the colony. However, the cruiser Primogay collided with HMS Neptune, preventing the French from reaching the Congo and their plans to quell the secession. Taking sides. Back in London, the Vichy French actions caused concern and unease. It was suggested that de Gaulle's forces should return and Operation Menace be cancelled in response to the Vichy French moves. But de Gaulle argued against the withdrawal, stating that it would give Vichy France a propaganda victory, to which Winston Churchill agreed. Despite the concerns, Operation Menace proceeded as planned. Therefore, Plan B was initiated, involving launching Luciole aircraft from Ark Royal with Free French airmen to make a surprise landing at the airfield at Wakam. Likewise, a Free French motorboat sailed into Dakar to deliver a personal message from de Gaulle to Pierre Boisson, the Vichy governor. British planes dropped leaflets on the town, while de Gaulle broadcast on the radio, hoping to convince the Vichy French to surrender. Although the airmen successfully landed at Wakam and took the commanding officer prisoner, the Vichy Guard captured them. The diplomatic party also attempted to meet with Boisson, but was arrested. They managed to escape with motorboats under gunfire, bringing back bad news. De Gaulle then made another broadcast, warning that the Royal Navy would open fire if the defenders did not surrender. Vichy forces responded with gunfire from coastal batteries, confirming their opposition to de Gaulle and the British. Greater conflicts. 2 Vichy submarines, Percé and Ajax, set out to attack British destroyers pursuing them, and Percé attempted a surface torpedo attack on the British battleship Barham, but was sunk instead. Barham fired on French forts. The Vichy forces fired back, hitting British ships Foresight and Cumberland. Both sides were sustaining damage and casualties. De Gaulle believed the Vichy French forces were not determined to fight to the end and were likely to surrender. He wanted to avoid a pitched battle and proposed stopping the bombardments and maintaining a blockade while planning a land assault on Dakar from undefended or lightly defended points. Thus, the British and Free French attempted to land Marines at Rufisque, but the port was too shallow for unloading heavy equipment. The French destroyer L'Audacieux engaged British destroyers and was disabled and set on fire. The Marines landed at Rufisque, but faced gunfire from Vichy shore batteries and Senegalese troops, resulting in their withdrawal. Both the British and Free French realized that taking Dakar without further escalating the battle was crucial. They retreated to regroup, treat their wounds, and plan their next move in order to capture Dakar effectively. Capturing Dakar was a strategic objective, but it needed to be achieved without provoking greater conflict or causing Vichy France to align with Germany as an ally. Despite the challenges and setbacks, the British and Free French remained determined to continue their efforts to capture Dakar and support the cause of Free France. Stop at nothing. Initially, the commanders considered calling off the operation. But that night, a message from Churchill came in, quote, "Having begun, we must go to the end. Stop at nothing." The British demanded the surrender of Dakar from the Vichy forces by 6 a.m., but the Vichy French rejected the British demand and vowed to defend Dakar. At dawn, Admiral Cunningham launched the attack. The British battleship, cruisers, and aircraft from Ark Royal engaged in a bombardment, targeting the forts and the French battleship Richelieu. However, the French cruisers maneuvered effectively and avoided the torpedoes, while the British lost 3 aircraft in the process. Later, a French submarine attempted to attack the British battleships, but she was sunk by a British destroyer. The British battleships continued exchanging fire with the forts and Richelieu for some time, but fog and smoke provided cover for the French, rendering the British efforts ineffective. The French Air Force then appeared, but their high-level bombing attempts were unsuccessful. After waiting for the smoke to clear, the British resumed shelling the French for half an hour, but they failed to silence the shore batteries. Smaller French batteries continued to damage British destroyers, and the Fleet Air Arm faced increasing opposition. Recognizing the challenges and risk, Admiral Cunningham met with de Gaulle, who admitted underestimating the Vichy defenses and resolve. De Gaulle proposed alternative plans, landing French troops at Bathurst for training, and later taking Dakar by land or disembarking troops at a lightly defended area and marching on Dakar. Withdrawal. The next day, with improved visibility, the British resumed bombardment. Battleships attacked the port, while cruisers engaged Force Y. Richelieu opened fire on Barham, resulting in an exchange of salvos. The French submarine Beaubaiser managed to hit Resolution with torpedoes, causing flooding and slowing down the battleship. The British deployed smokescreens to protect the damaged Resolution. Meanwhile, Devonshire fired at Fort Manuel, and Australia confronted Force Y. The French responded accurately, damaging Barham and Australia. However, the hits on Australia caused no casualties, except for the crew of the spotter seaplane. Eventually, the British ships ceased fire and withdrew, covered by fighters from Ark Royal. Considering the damage sustained by his fleet and the potential for further losses, Admiral Cunningham decided to withdraw the entire force to Freetown, with Barham towing Resolution. By the end of the appalling battle, Dakar remained under Vichy's control. Thank you for immersing yourself in the captivating world of Dark Ducks. Don't miss out on the opportunity to embark on countless epic journeys through the annals of world history. Subscribe now to unlock a treasure trove of enthralling stories and show your appreciation by hitting that like button. Your support means the world to us. Stay tuned.